Hello everyone. Welcome to the Hexagon Luciad 2022.1 product release launch livestream. The Luciad R&D team has been hard at work over the past year to bring you new features across all our products. Today we have prepared for you a showcase that clearly explains what we did on a technical level, illustrated by actual use cases. And don't worry, we've made it entertaining and visually pleasing, so I have no doubt you will enjoy the coming half hour. Before we dive in, let us do a quick recap of what we offer for those who are new at Luciad. Here at Luciad, we make SDKs, software development kits, that enable you to build geospatial applications. We bring all your geospatial data together in a single operational view. From cloud to desktop to web to mobile, we want you to gain more insight out of your data by interacting with it, making changes, combining it with other datasets, so that you can make decisions and take actions. And for this, we will visualize your data in 2D and 3D in a blink of an eye with our powerful SDKs. So what does that mean in practice? Here you can see our product overview. On the left, there's Luciad Fusion, software components for building a geospatial data server. It focuses on data cataloging and streaming data to clients over open protocols. On the right, there's our 3 client SDKs for visualization and analysis, each delivering the best developer experience and user experience for their target platforms. Luciad RIA focuses on web applications, and Luciad Lightspeed targets high-demanding desktop apps in Java. In the middle, there's Luciad cPillar, meant for desktop apps developed in C++ or C#. But today I'm really excited to announce a significant change to this product diagram. Luciad cPillar is now available for native Android development, using Kotlin and other tools in the modern Android ecosystem. This is a major milestone for our team, and you will learn all about it today, including a testimony from our pilot customer Impact, so stay tuned. Here are some examples of what Luciad users are doing with our SDKs. I think you can see there's a large variety of applications possible, and that our customers are active in many different markets. I was planning to go over each of them in detail, but instead I thought it might be more interesting for you to learn directly from one of our customers. And so I'm really happy that Michael from Epic Blue has agreed to share his Luciad story with us.
I'm sitting here next to Michael Ilsbrooks, who is the CEO of Epic Blue. Hi, Michael, welcome.
Thank you, glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for dropping by. So could you explain us what your company Epic Blue does?
Yes, so Epic Blue ensures the safety of people in high-risk environment. And what we look at is that we are able to track people indoors even if there's no GPS available, and that's really the core of our competence. And our technology that does that is called hyperlocation. Around that technology, we've built an end-to-end solution called Guardian, which really looks at lone workers at risk, making sure that they are safe. The core of our engine is built around an AI engine. And specifically for firefighters, first responders, and other government organizations, we are creating a next version of our wearable that is able to track people even if there's no GPS available.
Okay, so you mentioned firefighters, first responders. Are those your typical customers?
This is where we started, yes, because they really inspired us to look at this core problem of being able to track people indoor. And now we've branched off to other verticals, especially with our Guardian product. We look at miners, oil and gas workers, heavy industry workers, and also people working in hospitals, for instance, because there's a lot of people who work in potentially dangerous situations that could use our support. Yes.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so you're using the Luciad technology in your solutions.
Yes.
Why are you using it, and how do your customers benefit from it?
Mm-hmm. Well, we use principally Luciad RIA, fully embedded in our solution. what we see is, okay, we take care of the high resolution real-time location data, so that's one thing. Another thing is to be able to use that data and represent it visually. And that's really where Luciad and Luciad RIA come in, to be able to capture the high resolution data that we provide, but also in real time and create a situational awareness picture. So the combination of our streams of high accurate position data combined with the high accurate and real-time capabilities of the Luciad product is a perfect match, because you can then create a situational awareness picture that really is easy to understand for our customers. So if somebody's in danger, that people can mount a search and rescue effort.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you very much, Michael, for joining us today.
Yes.
And let's have a look now at a demo in which Luciad C-Pillar for mobile is used together with the technology from Epic Blue.
Thanks, Michael, for taking the time to share your story. You can find his full interview with Nele on the Luciad developer platform. It's well worth checking out. Now we can dive into the new product features. Tom will talk about Luciad Fusion, where we added many features for integrating our server components in your environment, including custom authentication, new events in our REST API, and others. Andrew will showcase the Luciad RIA enhancement. We've worked on integration of 2D data together with 3D aerial meshes, which is pretty neat. And we've added lots of new options for fine-grained user interaction, editing, as well as new visual and styling options and more performance. But first, Tom will tell you all about our major new product milestone, which is Luciad C-Pillar for Android.
Thank you, Joris. With the 2022.1 release, we introduced Luciad C-Pillar for Android as a replacement for Luciad Mobile. You might have noticed already on the developer platform that Luciad Mobile was removed from the Luciad product portfolio. Going for Luciad C-Pillar as our Android SDK was a decision that was not taken lightly, but looking forward, we thought it was the better option. From a capabilities point of view, Luciad C-Pillar had important features that Luciad Mobile didn't have yet, such as 3D visualization. Next to that, Luciad C-Pillar already had features that were also important for Luciad Mobile, such as full support for military symbology. From a technical point, we would benefit from code reuse. Significant parts of the rendering code would be shared between our Android SDK, Desktop C++ and C# SDK, and Luciad RIA. Once the decision was made, the effort was put in, and we launched Luciad C-Pillar for Android. Luciad C-Pillar for Android offers the exact same capabilities as the desktop version. And instead of taking you through a long list of features, let me demonstrate some of the possibilities using a demo application. We have created an Android app that supports a maintenance worker verifying fire equipment in an office building. The application combines a number of datasets in 3D, a background raster layer, a number of mesh datasets of the building where we will be working at today, and some point data which will be shown later in the demo. You can navigate around the data using touch in an intuitive way. The work needs to be done on the inside of the building, so you can select the floor where we will be working. This applies a visibility filter, so you can look from the top down into the building. The mesh dataset of this floor was created by scanning the building first with a BLK2Go. The point cloud was processed into a mesh representation using the HXDR platform and Cyclone 3DR. Luciad tools were then used to georeference the data. The blue icon represents a maintenance worker in the building. We've leveraged indoor location positioning technology by Epic Blue to keep track of people in the building. Epic Blue's Guardian app running on the smartphone determines the position of the device and communicates the updates to Luciad C-Pillar. A supervisor can track how the work progresses in the building. The icons represent fire equipment, fire extinguishers, smoke detectors, alarm buttons, and so on. As a supervisor, we can tap on the maintenance worker icon. The camera in the app then switches to a first-person view. This way, we can see what the maintenance worker would be seeing at that location. Dragging the screen allows you to control the camera and look around in the building. Let's switch to the maintenance worker who also has an Android app in the field. Using the app, he can easily find the location of the fire equipment in the building. He can then tap on an icon and change the state. As the maintenance worker moves through the building, his location is updated in the application. Here he arrives at the next smoke detector. Finally, the maintenance worker arrives at the closet. This closet should contain a fire extinguisher, but as he opens the door, the fire extinguisher appears to be missing. So he registered this in the application. The demo application only shows a small subset of the features in Luciad CPLR for Android. Other supported features that were not in the demo app are shown here. You can load and style 2D and 3D shapes, as well as create and editing using touch. Also, freehand drawing is supported. You can visualize, create and edit military symbology, and both MS-2525 and APP6 are fully supported. Next to mesh data, also point cloud visualization and styling is supported. The sample applications shown here are all included in the Luciad CPLR for Android release. From the developer experience side, we integrated Luciad CPLR with Google's recommended development setup. You can choose to program your application both in Kotlin as well as Java. The Luciad CPLR API also leverages null safety features in the Kotlin language. Begone null pointer exceptions! The samples in the release are developed using Kotlin. Information on how to set up a Java project is included in the documentation. From a UI perspective, you can choose to integrate with Android views or use the more modern Jetpack Compose software libraries. All the samples included in the release are built with Compose and are built as map-centric applications with on-screen buttons and slide-out panels. The sample code in the release can be opened in Android Studio. After copying some data, you can try the samples out immediately on a physical Android device or in the emulator in Android Studio, so don't hesitate to experiment and modify some sample code. Finally, the Luciad CPLR documentation has been adapted as well. We added the possibility to select the different development profiles the product now supports. You can choose between C++ documentation, C# documentation, and Android documentation. The documentation also automatically adapts code snippets and API reference links to the profile you selected. We bet this will make development with Luciad CPLR for Android an enjoyable and satisfying experience. And if something still wouldn't be clear, don't hesitate to contact us on support. Next to Android support, we also added a number of other smaller features to Luciad CPLR. These are available both in the Android and the desktop version. Firstly, we added support for visual effects to the Luciad CPLR map. API was added to configure both ambient occlusion and eye-dome lighting. The effects improve the visualization and realism of mesh and point cloud data. Especially if the data is not textured, applying an effect even becomes mandatory if you want to have an idea of what the data actually represents. Next to that, we also added API to customize the loading of raster and 3D tile data. This allows you to change how data is loaded into Luciad CPLR, to implement your own raster model, and so on. The examples on the screen show how Luciad CPLR was used to load point cloud data directly from Hexagon SIG's spatial modeler instead of loading it from the file system or a web server. And in the samples you can see how the custom raster model API is used to load hair maps data in Luciad CPLR. And last but not least, we have improved geotiff support by adding support for 8-bit index geotiff files, and we made significant performance improvements to vector data loading. Vector data is loaded and rendered 5 times faster as before. And with that, I'd like to hand the word to the other Tom, who will tell you all about Luciad Fusion.
Okay, thank you, Tom. That was very impressive. Up next is Luciad Fusion. There are 2 new features that I'd like to cover with you. The first one is an events mechanism. What this means in a nutshell is that Fusion will now post notifications of various events that happen within the system. You can use the Java API to listen to these events. For instance, when a user creates a new data item in the Fusion Studio user interface. There's a small code snippet on the slide here that should be self-explanatory to all the developers in the audience. Basically, it's creating an event listener that will be called when new data is created. For the non-developers in the audience, you could think of it as if you put your phone number on a list somewhere, and anytime a user creates new data in Fusion, Fusion will send you a text message explaining which data was created, when it was created, and by who it was created. And then you can act on this information. This isn't limited to the creation of new data, obviously. You can listen for all sorts of things, including creation of products and services, the status of processing jobs, and even access to services that you have running. For instance, when an external application, an external client, sends a WMS request to a WMS that you've started up. To illustrate this feature, we've created a small demo that I'd like to show you now. If you play the occasional video game, you might know that a lot of games have an achievement system. What this means is that if you reach certain milestones within the game or complete certain challenges, that the game rewards you with an achievement badge, and the achievements you unlock are typically displayed on a dashboard somewhere so that you can use them for bragging. Now imagine that you're enrolled in Fusion Academy and you're training to become a highly efficient data management professional. As you go through the training and gain hands-on experience with Fusion, there's an achievement service running in the background which monitors the operations that you perform in Luciad Fusion Studio. And certain operations or combinations of operations will unlock an achievement. Let's have a look. So on the left here you see Fusion Studio, and on the right you see the achievements dashboard. You can see that I've already unlocked a few achievements, but there's a good number that are still grayed out, which we could try to unlock now. Let's have a look at the first one that's still available. It's called Big Data, and it challenges me to crawl a directory that contains at least 100 data files. That shouldn't be too hard, right? Let's go over to Studio and go to the Settings tab. I'll add a new data root, and I'll paste in a directory that I happen to know contains quite a lot of files. Fusion will immediately start crawling it, and as soon as it finds the 100th file, the Big Data achievement is unlocked. That was easy. Let's try to do another one. The next available achievement challenges me to delete a previously created data, product, or service. I'll go over to Studio again and go to the Services tab and see if there's anything that I can get rid of. I notice that I have two blue marble services, one is WMS and the other is WMTS, so let's throw away one of them. I'll click on the Delete button, and as soon as I confirm, the achievement will again be unlocked. There it is. So this is made very easy thanks to the events mechanism. But it's not all fun and games. You can do some powerful stuff with this. For instance, you could monitor your Fusion instance by collecting all sorts of statistics or telemetry data, or by performing detailed audit logging. More importantly, you can also use the event mechanism to piggyback your own business-specific or domain-specific processing on the internal processes that already happen within Fusion, which is a very powerful thing. The next feature I'd like to cover is extended metadata support. That consists of two parts. The first is that you can now plug in custom metadata formats in Fusion. You might know that Fusion already supports the ISO 19115 metadata standard, but if you have metadata in another format, perhaps a proprietary format, you can now also plug that into Fusion, and it will be picked up during crawling and added into the Fusion database. So in a nutshell, what this means is that you're adding your own custom properties to every data resource that gets imported into Fusion. Also, once you have that, it's possible to edit the property values using the REST API. I'll come back to that later. The second part of this story is that you can now perform structured queries on your data resources using a language called RSQL. The queries have access to the custom properties that you've added, and RSQL provides you with a rich set of operators, comparison operators and logic operators, that you can use to express your searches. It also supports wildcards so that you can do fuzzy matching. And again, this is accessible via the REST API. In the topmost box on the slide here, you see a simple example of an RSQL query. It says price lower than or equal to 100 and city starts with a B. This would get translated into a REST API call, which is the URL that you see in the middle box. And then the server, Fusion, would respond to that by giving you a complete list of all the data it has that matches your search criteria. To demonstrate this functionality, we built another demo that I'd like to show you now. What you're seeing here is a digital storefront, or rather a mock-up of a digital storefront, that users might use to purchase data that you're hosting in Fusion. To make this work, we've added a set of properties to every data item, which notably includes the price of the data, but also things like the data type, the country, and the city. We use this information, together with the new querying support, to present the data to the user in an organized fashion. Let's have a look. So here we're on the landing page of the store, and you can see that not only does every data item list a price, but we've already highlighted some data sets based on their category. We can now also go over to the catalog page, where we'll see a complete list of all the data that we have available. There's quite a lot of it, but on the top of the page we have a search bar, which we can use to narrow down the list. We can filter the data based on the data type, for instance, based on the country, based on the city, and we can enter a price range. Let's try this out. Let's start by restricting the price to at most 300 euros. This already shortens the list a bit. Now let's try to filter by city. And just to give you an idea of what's possible using RSQL, I'm going to use the carré character, which means that we're doing a case-insensitive search. Then I'm going to use the asterisk, which is a wildcard character, and I'm going to look for all cities whose name contains the letter L. The list becomes a bit shorter again, and now for good measure, let's also restrict it to, for instance, just bike routes. So now there's only 4 left, and all this is done behind the scenes by assembling an RSQL query and sending it to Fusion. Now that I've found some data that I like, I can go add it to my shopping cart. Maybe I can try to squeeze out a little discount. Let me see if my code still works. Yes, it does, 20% off, that's nice. And now I can complete my purchase. Now, I've also mentioned that you can use the REST API to edit metadata properties after you've added them. Let's have a look at what we can do with that. So here we're back in the store and we're looking at the detail page for a satellite image of Rome. I like the image and I'd like to buy it, but I think the price is a little high. Fortunately for me, I'm also the administrator of this store, so I can go over to the administrator section of the site and actually find the data that I like and edit all of the properties that it has. So I can lower the price if I want, or I could change any other value, such as the description. Once I've done that, when I click on the Update button, the new values will be written into the database. This means that if I now go back to the store and refresh the page, you'll see that it reflects the values that I updated. There we go. And so all in all, this is another very powerful mechanism for adding extra functionality on top of Luciad Fusion. That concludes my part of the presentation. I'll pass the word on to Andrew.
Thanks, Tom. There's a lot going on in Luciad RIA, so let's dive in. The 2022.1 release introduces 3 new APIs to customize and improve map interactions. First, Luciad RIA's default map behavior is now exposed in the API through a slew of new controllers, so you can now tweak our zoom, pan, rotate, hover, select, and edit behavior to your heart's content. Second, we've added support to undo and redo feature interactions. You can see this in action in the Create and Edit sample. And third, Luciad RIA now comes with API to customize creation and editing behavior. You can implement your own editor from scratch or extend one of the out-of-the-box implementations. To get you started, we've added some common use cases for creation and editing to the samples. Let's show off these new editing features in a demo. In this application, we're using the custom editing API to draw drone trajectories over the Amsterdamse Bos, a big park in Amsterdam that attracts about 6 million visitors every year. Drone trajectories are subject to a lot of regulations, so we try to help the user respect all relevant constraints, for example, by showing no-fly zones on the map. Another constraint is the maximum height of the trajectory. Our custom editor both visualizes and enforces this constraint. The editor shows the height during editing and won't allow you to configure illegal heights. An additional handle shows all heights at a glance. We've also disabled moving the trajectory as a whole, so you don't accidentally mess up the whole path. And finally, another editing customization here is proportional editing, where a single edit operation affects multiple points, so you can maintain a smooth
camera path. We'll revisit Amsterdam soon, but first, some improvements to our OGC symbology encoding support. Also known as styled layer descriptors, symbology encoding is a standardized format for cross-platform and cross-vendor style definitions. You can use it to style web feature service data at the client side, or even pass symbology encoding requests to a web map server. Some highlights of the newly supported features in Luciad RIA include the ability to define label boxes, perpendicular line offsets to create complex line styles, as seen in this airspace, line displacements to create cool shadow effects, and the ability to customize line joins and caps. But that's not all, though. You can find the complete list of improvements in the What's New section of the Luciad RIA documentation. Next up, exploring military symbologies just got a lot more fun, thanks to several new improvements in the symbology samples. We've greatly reduced startup time and added a documentation article with tips to optimize your own WebGL symbology sample. We've also added the new search bar to quickly locate a symbol. We've added anchor point visualization to help both users and developers figure out how symbols are defined. And last but not least, there's some new styling API for military symbology to help you, for example, highlight symbols as you hover over them. Finally, let's take a look at 3 cool new Luciad RIA visualization features in this urban planning demo. We're back in Amsterdam, looking at some lovely city mesh data from HXDR. The data has been provided by 3D-NL. Now, while this data is beautiful to look at, it doesn't contain any metadata. It's purely geometry. And in a typical geospatial application, you need to display semantic information on the map. This type of information is very commonly two-dimensional. Now, to help with these types of applications, we're introducing a brand new version of our draping algorithm. It allows you to drape any 2D data source on top of a 3D mesh. And all of this happens on the fly and in real time. This is a great way to add insights to a 3D mesh dataset. Let's have a look at how this could be used in practice. Let's load some data directly from the city database. In this case, a 2D feature service dataset shows the location and status of new development projects. We can visualize this with custom styling using the properties in the features. We can even use this time slider to act as a real-time filter for when the areas are planned to be renovated. Let's load a bigger dataset. This time, let's have a look at every single building in the cadastre dataset. Again, we can customize coloring and styling as we want. Like this one, coloring buildings according to their function. Residential, commercial, industrial, SimCity? Nope, digital reality. You can select the WFS features as you're used to and hook them up to a balloon showing the exact stats. We can also check out what parts of the city are historic. All these white houses are more than 300 years old. We can gain a lot of insight at a glance by projecting this 2D dataset onto the 3D mesh, giving you more options than before for combining 2D and 3D data sources. By the way, you might have noticed the nice glow effect when hovering over map features. This is a new type of styling called bloom. You can use it to make shapes appear very bright in order to focus on them. It's a great way to highlight a feature, regardless of its styling. And while we're doing urban planning, we can also show off the third new feature, 3D icon instancing. Instancing greatly improves the performance of visualizing many points with the same icon, like trees. Let's add some green to the city and replace this boring parking lot with a lush green park. On a larger scale, we can also instance the trees by connecting to a geospatial database containing 2D locations of trees, where we use the same icon but transform it using the size and radius feature properties from the dataset. Again, we're visualizing this information as 3D icons in real time as it's coming from a server. There is no pre-processing needed for this. Here you can see some very tall trees. As a matter of fact, these trees are also historic, planted in the 60s and the 70s. And that's it for Luciad RIA. Back to Joris.
Wow, that was quite a ride. It's great to see the nice 3D visuals with aerial mesh datasets from HXDR, Encyclomedia 3DNL, and the indoor scans with the BLK2Go. I'm always surprised at how our software engineers can build such beautiful showcases that clearly explain what we did. They sure have a creative and I guess even artistic mind. I'm personally really happy with this release. We started Luciad CPillar and Luciad RIA based on a shared code base, and we're seeing more and more synergy between the two. During development of Luciad CPillar for Android, we worked closely together with our customer Impact in France. They helped us with requirements and gave feedback on our alpha and beta releases. And Jean-Philippe has taken the time to sit together with Nele to talk about their experience.
I'm now calling with Jean-Philippe Girard from the company Impact. Impact is a French system integrator who has tested the Luciad CPillar for Android alpha and beta versions to include it in their Delta Suite solution. Bonjour Jean-Philippe. Tout d'abord, merci d'avoir accepté de faire cette interview avec nous. Vous êtes le Product Manager de Delta Suite. Pouvez-vous m'expliquer ce que Delta Suite fait et qui sont les utilisateurs?
Bien sûr. Bonjour à vous. Donc, la Delta Suite, c'est un système d'information tactique fonctionnant donc, à la fois sur des terminaux Windows et Android. Donc, elle permet de combiner des informations géolocalisées avec des données issues de différents capteurs, puis de les partager avec tous les acteurs d'une opération grâce à des capacités avancées de communication. Donc, son objectif, c'est de faciliter la conduite et la réalisation de missions complexes au profit des forces armées ou des forces de sécurité. La Delta Suite en elle-même peut être employée à la fois sur le terrain, donc là on serait plutôt dans un mode Android, ou embarqué dans des véhicules. Alors véhicules au sens large, hein, ça peut être des véhicules terrestres, des bateaux, des avions, des hélicoptères, ou être employé dans un centre de commandement.
Aujourd'hui, on a lancé Luciad CPillar for Android. On vous remercie d'avoir testé les versions alpha et bêta de façon étendue. Quelles sont vos premières impressions et comment cette nouvelle technologie permettra-t-elle d'encore améliorer votre Delta Suite?
Alors, le Luciad CPillar for Android est très prometteur. On a fortement apprécié les échanges qu'on a eus avec les équipes de développement de Luciad. Nos différents besoins ont été pris en compte dans la roadmap. Nos remontées voilà, entre les versions alpha et bêta, pareil, ont été pris en compte, donc on est plutôt ravis. Et puis évidemment, là, nous, de ce qui ressort de prime abord, la première plus-value, c'est vraiment l'ajout de la 3D sur la version Android. C'est une fonctionnalité qui était très attendue par nos clients et on est ravis de pouvoir la mettre en place dans notre solution Delta Suite. Ensuite, la gestion, l'accélération matérielle telle qu'elle est maintenant mise en place dans cette nouvelle version va avoir un impact très positif forcément sur les performances. Il nous sera du coup peut-être possible de mettre en place des fonctionnalités assez gourmandes qu'on n'aurait même pas imaginées avant et finalement avoir des outils qui jusqu'à maintenant étaient réservés plutôt à la version Android qui seront déclinés sur la version Android telle que la vidéo augmentée par exemple.
Merci beaucoup pour cette interview, Jean-Philippe. Je vous souhaite encore beaucoup de succès avec Delta Suite. Now, let's go back to the launch event in the studio.
Thanks, Jean-Philippe. It's been great working with you and the team over the last year. Nele had more interesting questions for Jean-Philippe, so you can find the full interview on our developer platform. So we've come to the end of our 2022.1 launch event livestream. I thought it was awesome. Congratulations to everyone involved, both Toms and Andrew for presenting, and Nele for doing the interviews, and Bruno and Daniel, the crew behind the scenes, for making this work. And of course, the entire R&D team for helping out with the demos and the great product features. If you're interested in seeing more showcases, learning about our products, or just want to get your hands dirty, here's our contact information. Our Luciad developer platform is the best way to learn all about our products, from API to how-to articles to inspiring videos. The Hexagon SIG website has high-level product information and brochures. If you want to talk about your needs, feel free to contact your SIG account manager, and Hexagon employees can reach out to me or anyone in the Luciad product management